ring if you're ready to care. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only WETOODEEP. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seat. This is slapping me, yes, slapping me.
And welcome back to another episode of the Slapping Meat Community Show. This will be the final episode of season 4 of the year 2025 as we head into the Christmas season here. Just wanted to do sort of one final sort of not necessarily a year in review. We'll address the whole year of wrestling, but really I wanted to do one final episode, just me solo, to get some final thoughts on John Cena's final year. It's through. I want to give some final thoughts on that. Do one more opportunity to have Discord questions asked from those in the Discord. That way I can answer those, since I wasn't able to do it on Tuesday. Speaking of Tuesday, if you have not listened to the award show episode, the Slappy Award show episode that was done on Tuesday, whether you watched the live stream, whether you watch it afterwards, whether you listen to the audio, whichever way, go check that out. It was a really fun episode. Got off the rails a couple times, but it was really fun to do that with them. But with that, before we actually jump into my end of the year thoughts on John Cena, I want to mention NXT for, NXT is my favorite product. I do want to talk about one thing that happened. Being that we recorded on Tuesday, I didn't watch it live. I watched the episode last night. It was your standard episode, leading towards the big New Year's Evil episode, and so we got some things settled there. But the big thing that happened that has everyone talking is Thea Hale winning the Women's North American Championship in what people are calling a botch, right? And I want to talk about this because I have a couple things I want to say about it. So the first thing that I want to say is, can we just stop using insider terms? Like it really just annoys me in the IWC that every time something looks messy, we immediately say, "Oh, that's a botch," right? And the internet says, they messed it up. Who's to blame here? Guys, it's a performance. Sure. Was it a botch? Sure. But can we stop? Can non-performers stop calling things a botch? Because allow the performers, allow the writing team to just fix what happens. Like, enjoy the show. There's a lot of times in productions, in movies that you watch, in TV shows that you watch, where something goes off script. Maybe I remember the scene. I don't know if you guys ever watched the series of Unfortunate Events show. I think Netflix made it, where Jim Carrey, he's playing, I don't remember the dude's name, but one of the main characters, and he has a line and he forgets his words and he ad-libs. Jim Carrey is very known for ad-libbing If you've ever seen like an Adam Sandler movie, right? There's a lot of ad-libbing that goes on in his movies, right? And some of the best quotable lines in movies are things that weren't part of the script or things that weren't supposed to happen, and they go with it and they, right? But we wouldn't call those botches, right? Because we don't have inside, right? We don't have the inside scoop, and so the problem is a lot of people think that because we have the inside scoop on what's supposed to happen and what wasn't. It's why I'm not a big fan of these dirt sheets of the Fightfuls, of the all of those out there that as soon as something happens, they think they have to be investigative journalists, and the IWC has to be investigative journalists and have an opinion on whether or not it was Blake Monroe's fault, the referees. Guys, allow Shawn Michaels, allow the writing team, allow them the opportunity to say, you know what, that didn't go as planned. Now we need to fix it. And because here's what I think. I think that's where real creativity starts. Now, this was a simple fix. Just redo the match at New Year's Evil, which is exactly from what I understand, they're doing, right? But this is where WWE can actually be creative, and I have the feeling that this might actually be a better situation, a bigger blessing than the fans are willing to allow, right? Because here's the thing, it's part of being an internet fan, right? Everyone just has to be negative. But this could be a blessing for two reasons. One, this is easily remedied just by redoing the match at New Year's Evil. It allows you to be creative. But I think the reason this could be a blessing, at least for me, is Blake Monroe really needs a character that isn't the Toni Storm ripoff, in my opinion, right? I think she's a great performer. I think she's great on the mic. Her gimmick is what's really pushing me away from, actually believing in her. Because anytime she gets in the ring, I don't feel it, right? To me, it just screams, this is what I did in AEW. This is what I'm comfortable with. And so we're just going to do it over here, and we're going to do it with higher production, right? I think, in my opinion, Blake Monroe, one of two things should have happened with her when she got on the scene. She should have been the Barbie princess, sort of rich, spoiled white girl, elitist, like foreign elitist, she's from London, so you Americans, right? I think that would have been a great gimmick. The sort of I'm rich, I'm beautiful, I'm an elitist because I'm, I don't know. You could have created a story around that type of gimmick, or I think a more natural heel fit for her. As much as I love Lainey Reed in this position, is if Jasmine Nix is on the way out, I think Blake Monroe immediately is the best opportunity to put into something like a Fatal Influence. Even if you add Lainey Reed at it as well and make it a 4-person team, I think Blake Monroe fits perfectly in there, right? And that can set up a natural story for the World Women's Championship. I think Blake Monroe should be in that World Championship, the Women's World Championship picture anyway. And so I also think that's, if it was me and I'm booking this, Thea's winning on New Year's Evil, right? I want to talk about the incident itself, though. It appears, Thea did the, I don't actually I know what the term is, but it's not coming to my mind right now. She did like a jump off a springboard. That's what it's called. She did a springboard senton, essentially is what it was. And when she hit Blake, apparently she knocked her out. Like, took the wind out of her. So she wasn't able to get the shoulder up. Here's what I really like about that no one's giving credit for. Booker T, Vic Joseph. This is why I call them the best announcers in wrestling. They absolutely saved any hope of, fixing this. Vic Joseph is a natural, right? A lot of times, if you don't get a natural sort of commentator who can react on the spot, and like he was all professional. Booker T, all professional. I think the entire situation was, handled the best that they could, and they really saved this with did she get her shoulder up? I think she may have got her shoulder up. I don't like this count. And then Booker T comes in like, oh, damn, these junior referee. Bro, Booker T is hilarious. I don't understand how anyone can hate Booker T as a commentator. He's like, Joe Hendry's music this week, and he was singing along to it. I was dying laughing. Booker T is hilarious. But the commentary on this absolutely saved the story, right? And I'm sure Shawn Michaels and everyone is scrambling on how to fix this, especially like this was a bad time to do it because they had pre-taped next week's show and I think the week after, right? I think they basically taped all the way up to New Year's Evil, and now they have to make changes to it. It was a really bad time, but I think if we allow them to be creative, because ultimately my ultimate thought on this, WWE, NXT, pro wrestling as a whole, AEW, we need more randomness like this, right? Now I'm the one that says predictability is not a bad thing. 100% going to stand on that business. Predictability is not a bad thing. As a producer, you want to be able to lead your audience to as you're leading them, they figuring out the plot points and where this is headed. I think that's fine. With that being said, I think there is a difference between being predictable, which isn't a bad thing, and being boring, which is a bad thing. And we have a lot of boring wrestling in 2025, right? We have a lot of examples of boring wrestling on the main roster in 2025. What tends to happen sometimes, especially in WWE, is they have like a template for how shows are going to run, and every show runs that way, right? Throwing in every other episode, or once a month on a random episode, you never know when it's going to happen. Something random like this happening, I think that spices up the product. Now it can't be something like slapstick like Vince Russo used to do. It has to fit within the story. But I think we need a little bit more randomness, a random mid-card title change to happen that we didn't think was going to happen, or something, that gets people talking about the show, right? If anything, people are talking about NXT, right? And the creative team, they're going to fix this. They're going to run with it. I think this, right? And the reason I think we need some randomness is because I want realistic television. I don't want reality television. And a lot of times wrestling can start to feel like reality TV, right? Where nothing goes the way it does in actual real life, where everything seems surgical, cut, copy and paste, right? I want things to happen on my wrestling show the way things would happen in actual life. And randomness happens in life. Things you don't expect would happen, right? This was a very real moment, right? And everyone's trying to blame everyone who messed up. Look, the last one we need to blame is the referee. He did his job, right? Now, the only thing I would say I would wish would have happened, and she probably wasn't thinking about it in the moment, and I completely understand it. What would have made the segment a little bit greater in the ring was when Thea played this perfectly, right? Because this wasn't supposed to happen, but Thea Hale played this perfectly. She got the belt handed to her. She started to cry. Perfect. First title in NXT. This is perfect. I wish Blake Monroe would have had the improv ability to throw a temper tantrum in the middle of the ring. Just lose it. While Thea's music's playing, we're all confused trying to figure. I wish she would have sold the moment a little bit more, so that when they did the improvised backstage segment where she came back crying and saying the ref deserves to lose her job, like this is gonna be this could be a good character. I know Becky Lynch is already the referee should be fired type character on the main roster. No one buys Becky Lynch doing that, right? I don't buy it, right? And I know Chelsea Green's already right, and we have a lot of those type of things, but again, I just, there's something with Blake Monroe that if she just comes back, she comes back and her promo is the ref sucks, basically. Like, let's play into this, right? Let's play into this. Put the same ref in the ring on New Year's Evil, and Blake Monroe's like, no, this can't happen. This is a conspiracy. I don't know. We need something to spice Blake Monroe's character up. So I think this is a blessing. And I know a lot of people are just trying to be negative on it. Oh, look at this, right? And then the AEW haters are like, I told you this would happen. They would mess up Blake's career. She should have never left. And then the WWE D-writers are all like, that AEW training, blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing. We can't use the words AEW and training in the same sentence because AEW doesn't train nobody, right? Monroe was fully trained in London and in Japan, right? AEW doesn't train anyone. They don't have a training center. They don't have a PC. So we can't use the words AEW and training in the same sentence because AEW doesn't train anybody. They don't develop anybody. They hire already developed talent, right? And then those who need work don't get work in AEW, and then eventually they end up in the PC where they can actually develop and become superstars, like one Ricky Saints and one Ethan Page. Ethan Page was already a superstar before AEW, though. It's kind of funny though, where he was over in TNA, he's over now in NXT. The only place he wasn't over in is AEW, and it's kind of, maybe there's a reason for that. Anyway, no need for all of that. I just think, again, we just need some more randomness, and this is the type of randomness that, one, the fans are into it because they want Thea to win anyway, and two, you can create a story out of this. Part of me, and I know this is traditional wrestling online fan, this is what they all say. Oh, it's a work. And I typically I try to avoid it's a work. Now, this was a mistake. And WWE is going to work a mistake into a work to where it's part of the story. That's literally their job. Right? They have to improv now. And I thought they did a good job, right? I have no negatives to this situation. Other than the fact that they already, obviously Blake was supposed to win because they had her music queued up. because that was what played first, and then they turned it off and turned Thea's music on, which I actually think added to the confusion of the moment. But it could be seen as a little sloppy. But I don't understand. I get why we preload music, but I kind of just assumed it's not that hard to swap tracks. But it is what it is. I don't hate what happened. I don't think it's as negative as people are saying it is. It's easily remedied. And it makes New Year's Evil that much more of an important show. So I enjoyed it. I'd enjoyed it. I did. All right, but let's move on to what's essentially my final thoughts of 2025. And since the only thing that really happened in 2025 worth talking about is John Cena's final run, that's what we're going to talk about. Here are my overall thoughts of John Cena's final run from beginning to end. And then what we're going to do is, because I would have booked the final run a little bit differently. And I have this written down from beginning of the year to the end of the year, how I would have booked John Cena's final year, how I would have done it. And I want you to compare and contrast it to what actually happened, right? But overall thoughts. First, I wasn't a fan of the run. Like, if I had to take the whole run, the whole year, this gets like a C-, right? But the first half gets an F, right? The second half, like once you get past SummerSlam, from SummerSlam, because that match with Cody at SummerSlam was awful. But once you get, or excuse me, I lied. The one at Mania was awful. The one at SummerSlam was great. So from the SummerSlam match, which was great, to the end of the run, that gets an A+, 100%. Story wasn't there, but the matches, and really, let's just be honest, John Cena's last run really was just about the matches. We really didn't need storyline, right? We just wanted to see matches, right? I would give that an A+. I would give the first half, anything before the SummerSlam match, an F. And so you sort of get one extreme, the other extreme, so they meet in the middle. It's a C-, right? As the second half was really good, right? Here's where I would fix it. Or here were some things that I thought about it. It lacked any general... I wrote down in my notes storytelling. What I really meant was it lacked direction, right? Like this should have been like a single. Like, first off, and this is how I booked it when I booked it. So we'll go ahead and jump the line here for a second. The only thing that mattered was the chase for 17, and at the beginning of the year, me and Wavy D had said that they needed to build towards the 17, right? That was what we needed. That needed to be the creative direction, was the journey to get the record. And now, me personally, and I said this on Tuesday, who really cares if John Cena is a Grand Slam champion? He's the greatest wrestler of the generation, one of the greatest of all time, right? No one really cares if he won the IC title. And so that should have never been part of the story. The story should have been the chase for 17, right? The chase for 17. And that starts at Rumble, and it, right? The problem is they sort of started with that, right? With that notion, right? So Cena announces July-ish of 2024 that he's retiring in 2025, that this is going to be his final year. He comes into the Rumble, and that's essentially what appears to be the story. I haven't won in a while, and I need to get 17. Right? So he loses Rumble. Immediately the next pay-per-view a month later, he turns on Cody Rhodes. He wins the Chamber and turns on Cody Rhodes, essentially saying, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get 17. that whole right, but you lose the 17 aspect of that, and then you give it to him at Mania, right? And that's right. I would have bought the "I sold my soul to The Rock." It, one, if The Rock actually showed up and we did something with that, and two, if you didn't immediately give John Cena the title 4 months into the run, because that made the last 8 months completely irrelevant. There was no clear creative direction. There were way too many pivots. This is what I'm talking about when this is not the type of improv you want to do. There was no creative plan. Once Cena won 17, all the plot that mattered was finished. It was the only story that we really cared about, was him winning the 17th championship. The heel turn was stupid. And then my final overall thought before we go down and break down how I would book it is, can we, for the life of me, like for all that is holy, stop comparing this run to Sting's? If I see one more AEW fan say, oh, well, Tony Khan respects his veterans. Look at Sting's retirement tour. Sting went undefeated in tag team matches against nobody tag teams that no one actually cares about. Right? Here's my question. Now, I'm a traditionalist. You put people over when you go out, right? So here's my question. I'm willing to ask any AEW fan, if there's any that are listening to this, to ask. I'm asking one question. Help me out here. Darby Allin not counting, and I'll explain why Darby doesn't count. Who did Sting put over? Right now, I asked this to the Junkyard Boys, because they disagreed with my tweet. I posted that question in tweet form and sent it to them. And they disagreed. And Junkyard James came back and said, well, they put over the Young Bucks. Because as soon as they lost the titles was when the Young Bucks turned on Tony Khan. That's your answer? That's who Sting put over? That's not a good answer, bro. You mean you put over the only established tag team on the roster? An already established team who's already over, who owns you put over the owners of the company? That's not a good answer, because that's not what the question was. What talent got put over? If the only answers are Darby Allin and the Young Bucks, and I'm going to say Darby doesn't count, here's why. Before Sting, Darby Allin was wannabe Jeff Hardy, who did dangerous stunts off the top of, whatever, right? After Sting, when Sting left, at the end of the day, what is Darby Allin? The same character that he was before Sting. The same character he's been portraying since 2019. Darby's the same person today as he was 5 years ago, character-wise. Because immediately after all of this, didn't Darby leave, go do his climb for Everest? I know he got ran over by like a truck or whatever in New York, like a city bus. A lot of things happened to Darby since then, but none of them was elevating him to a position that mattered on the show. Right? And then to fully put him over, again, to get him over the Death Riders, you had to bring Sting back. So these are not comparable. I'm not saying Sting's run is bad, but there is in no way, shape, and form will I ever say that Sting's run, where he loses none of his matches, he has random tag team and three-way, 6-man matches or whatever, right? That put nobody over. They win the titles on the retirement show night. Like, literally the night you're leaving. You're gone after this. You're not coming back. Right? You win the titles and then vacate them, which is stupid booking. Right? Nothing changed about Darby. Sting put nobody over. On the outset, John Cena did two things. Dom put Dom over. Not that Dom needed to be put over. He was already over. But he put Dom over. In the build up to this, even before the retirement tour, he put Solo over. He put... he tried to put Austin Theory. Austin Theory is on like his fifth opportunity to get over. Let's hope this one works, right? But you put Logan Paul over, right? Now understand, over doesn't mean they beat you, right? Like you could go over in a defeat, right? But he legitimized Logan Paul. He definitely established Cody Rhodes as the next John Cena, right? He put over Dom, and he made Gunther the most massive heel in the world, right? And so, just in that respect, John Cena's heel turn, or not heel turn, heel turn was awful, but John Cena's final run over, when you compare them, because I'm not against comparing them, but I'm against assuming they are the same thing. If what makes a retirement tour great is, he got to come to the ring with his son. Breaking news, John Cena has no kids. Breaking news. What were you expecting? Were you expecting them to play Thug Life? Look, Thugonomics came on, that would have been great. But Thug Life John Cena wasn't coming out. Like, I don't know what more you wanted. Like, he didn't get a speech. He's been doing go-away speeches for the last year. They didn't trip. They gave him a video at the. They purposely did not put this on NBC like the other Saturday Night Main Events have been on, so that there was no cutoff time, so they could show his video. And they gave an entire PLE level event around the wishes of John Cena. You know what makes John Cena happy? The fact that Sol Ruca made herself a superstar and gets a USA title match next week on TNA, that would be crazy. The USA title, or the women's US title, that's the main roster title being defended by against an NXT superstar on TNA, that would be crazy, but that's not what's happening. On NXT next week, US title, women's US title, Chelsea Green versus Sol Ruca. This is what I'm talking about. Sol Ruca immediately fits in that mid-card division. That's what I was talking about, why it's easier for someone like a Sol Ruca to be called up than an Obafemi or Javon Evans, or Javon and Ricky could go in that mid-card, but like an Obafemi can't go straight to the top. A Trick Williams can't go straight to the top. And so I think it's best for them to stay in NXT. Whereas a Sol Ruca can immediately be inserted into the mid-card on the main roster and thrive. I kind of hope Sol wins this match. I kind of do. And then the last thing, real quick, before we get into how I would have booked it, if I was in charge, how I would have booked John Cena's final run. The last thing is these comments that, I mean, we're almost a week past. These comments still to this day on the final match and how it ended. I'm just going to be honest. At this point, they're just annoying. Right? And maybe it's just I'm a fan of tradition. I think that there's an unspoken rule about how you leave the business that gave you so much, and that unspoken rule is you give back to it. You pass the torch. That's an unspoken rule that almost everybody that that's a superstar, that's a wrestler in the business, they all gave them so much, so I got to give back on the right. I got to give back to it. You go out on your shoulders. John Cena, what he did, left the business a gift. He gave back one more time. And what was that gift? What was the gift John Cena gave on his way out the door? He gave it a monster heel. Now let me say this, potential. Depends on how Triple H and Gunther and all of them, how Triple H books it and how Gunther performs. But if it's going to be the way it was on Monday, I think we got a potential monster heel on our hands here. I'm going to say something a little controversial, right? Because us Gunther fans, and I'm a stan of Gunther. I've been standing Gunther for 2 years at this point, right? I love Gunther as a wrestler. He's the greatest performer, other than Ethan Page. I think Ethan Page has him beat because Ethan Page can be, it's a different type of heel. So, and I think Ethan Page is the type of heel that's the easiest to beat. Gunther is a 70s heel. 70s heels don't connect as well with the modern audience, right? Ethan Page is a more modern heel, right? I will say this though, Gunther has Ethan Page beat in that Gunther never puts on bad matches, and anytime Gunther's in a ring, I know I'm going to get a banger. I can't say that about Ethan. I know Ethan's going to tell me a good story, and he's a great character. I can't, and he puts on really good matches. I'm not going to say he puts on bad matches, but I know with Gunther, I'm never going to get a bad match. And if I do, then something's wrong, right? Gunther's the best wrestler in pro wrestling. And I think 2026 is fully his. They need to make this a year-long reign of terror. Triple H knows something about a reign of terror. I think he needs to dethrone CM Punk. I think he needs to retire Brock Lesnar. I think he needs to retire AJ Styles. I think they need to... I think Gunther needs to have the level of run that Roman Reigns had. We need that level. We need that Thanos level of villain, because I don't think Cody Rhodes should be the guy to calm him down. I personally think it should be, they should go the Javon Evans route, and do the David and Goliath. But in order to have David and Goliath type storyline, you need a Goliath. And it's what Gunther is. But you have to build him up as unbeatable. I think Gunther should, and I don't think we need to have like 1,000-day reign of terror. But I think 2026 and should be Javon Evans on his year on NXT. I think Gunther should have all of 2026 to dominate. I think 2027's Royal Rumble, Javon Evans should, be the mysterious, entrant from NXT and win. Right? The surprise entrant that most people weren't thinking about. And then he wins. I think Javon Evans should win representing NXT. One, because I think these call-ups or these one-offs from the NXT people in the Royal Rumble mean nothing if they don't actually stand a chance. Which is why, like, Roxanne Perez losing this year, she comes from NXT, she comes and she withstands everyone the whole match, dominates hour and 2 minutes or whatever, right? And then is basically finishes second. Is the one that almost wins. That meant something for her, right? Now we need someone to win, and I think 2027, Javon Evans wins. Gunther has this big reign of terror. He beats Punk, retires Lesnar, retires AJ Styles, comes in, Javon Evans wins the Rumble, and chooses Gunther, right? That I'm going to slay the beast, right? I'm going to end the reign of terror, right? That you immediately put Javon Evans over, right? And then you come to Mania and you dethrone the monster. And if that happens, John Cena giving back to the business is a 2-year storyline. Right? You see what I'm saying? That's long-term thinking of how to do this. And that's not hard. And I mean, what's hard to do is, okay, we have a plan on what to do, but how do we execute it? Right? That's the hard part. But does that storyline not sound good? Right? But I'm going to say something here, because I'm a Gunther stan, and I'm sort of in the middle of two groups. On the left of me, I have the IWC sicko losers who despise Gunther, thinks he's boring. And then on the right of me, I have the casual losers who also think he's boring, but they think he's boring for two different reasons. Right? The casuals just want flashy. Well, actually, let me say this. Can I say this? The IWC sickos and the uber casuals who, right? They're not any different from each other. It's similar to politics, where like the far left, the AOC types, and the far right, the Nick Fuentes types. They're the same group of people. They're promoting the same thing. Listen, can I explain to you? Let me explain to you the political analogy. Then I'll explain to you and apply it to wrestling. Right? Let me explain to you using one example. Right? So the far left, the Ilhan Omars, the AOCs, those people, free Palestine. That's what they're chanting. Right? It's anti-Jew. What's Nick Fuentes? What's Candace Owens? What's the Groypers? They're anti-Jew. They're the same group. They have the same goal in mind. One's a little bit more conservative, right? Communism and fascism are the same group, but different, right? The destination's the same, right? The far right being fascism, the far left being communism. It's the same thing. It's populism. The destination's the same. The route they get there's different, right? Let's apply it to wrestling. The far left being the IWC sicko losers, the far right being the uber casual wrestling fan who just wants the glitz, the glam, the flashy, mainstream. We can't have anything that's too niche, right? It's the same group. They both hate. Why do they both hate Gunther? He's boring. Well, they're boring for different reasons to them, right? To the casuals, he's boring because he's not ripped and jacked, and he doesn't have a catchphrase, and he's not entertaining. To the sickos, he doesn't do the flips and he's a grappler, right? And that's actually what makes him my favorite, is he's a grappler, right? He puts you out, right? I'm glad his finisher isn't the power bomb anymore. It's the chokehold, right? That's the way it should be, right? Again, I love it, right? But the point is, IWC or casual, let's say we call them the CWC, the casual wrestling community, right? Let's say we call it that. They're the same. The destination's the same. We hate Gunther. The path they get there's a little different, but it's the same bird with two different wings. They're no different from each other, right? They're no different. So, to both groups, if you can't appreciate what Gunther is, then there's only two words for you. Suck it. No, I'm playing. But let's get into how I would have actually booked John Cena's final year. And like I mentioned, how he lost at Rumble and winning the Chamber, I would have done the same. Nothing changes up until the moment he turns, right? I would have had him come into the Royal Rumble, right? And what was my critique? There was no creative direction. So let's set that creative direction front and center, right? It's the quest for 17, right? That's what we want. Easiest way to do that: win the Royal Rumble, get a WrestleMania match, get a title match immediately, right? He comes in, he loses to Jey Uso, right? And what was my complaint at the time? What was not really complaint, what was my reasoning here to what I would do? I said I would have Jey fight Cody, and I would have Cena fight Gunther. That was what I said, right? Well, that's what we're going to do here, right? He wins the Chamber. The only thing that differs at this point is no Rock involved, no Travis Scott, no heel turn. The weeks between Chamber and Mania are John Cena and Jey Uso. You know, we see 1 week in between Chamber and Mania that Cena's there. He finds Jey Uso. He's like, hey, let's go into my, Cena gets his own locker room, right? Because he's John Cena. Let's go talk business. Right? And then Jey Uso, we see leave the room, the office. He goes to the ring and he chooses Cody. Right? That's what I would have done. I would have had Cena versus Gunther. I would have had Cody versus Jey. Right? Now here's the thing. Jey loses that match. Right? Now, because ultimately, and we're seeing this, and they're now seeing this, you can't trust Jey Uso with the main event spot. Right? So Jey loses to Cody. Right? And Cena and Gunther are there. And Gunther, so you know how Triple H booked Cena to go out? That's exactly how I booked Cena to lose this match. There's a desperation there, right? This might be the last opportunity he gets at winning a title, right? So he loses to Gunther at Mania. The night after, he goes up and he talks to Adam Pearce, and Adam Pearce is saying, hey, John, and he's like, no, I don't want to fight Gunther again. He made me tap. I think I'm going to go trek on SmackDown. Right? That SmackDown, he goes to Nick Aldis and he says, I need a match against Cody. Right? And Nick Aldis says, John, I don't know what they do on Raw. I'm not Adam Pearce. I'm not going to give you another opportunity. You're going to have to prove to me, right, by winning matches, you're going to have to earn this title shot against Cody. But I'll tell you what. If you can prove to me that you deserve a spot against Cody, I'll give you a match at SummerSlam. So now we're already planning for SummerSlam. Right? So the next PLE after Mania was Backlash. He fought Randy Orton. Same opponent I would have had him against. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't remember how Triple H booked these and what the results were. It doesn't matter. Either way, Randy Orton beats John Cena. Because basically the charge is you have to start winning matches, John. But he hasn't won a match other than the Chamber in 5 years at this point now, right? That's what we're going on. So he loses to Randy Orton. Well, the next PLE after Backlash is Money in the Bank. John Cena says, Aldis, listen, just put me in the match. Nick Aldis says, you know what? This is the only way I'm going to help you. I'll put you in the match. I'll put you in the Money in the Bank match because I respect you, John. And if you can get past the 5 other competitors who win in this tournament, right? If you can get past the other 5, you would have proved yourself worthy to win the briefcase. So I'll put you in. Well, that Money in the Bank, the final closing scene of the match is the other competitors There's only two that really matter, and that's Punk and Cena. That's the only two that matter in this story. Doesn't matter who the other four are. The other four are out. Punk's down in the ring, or Punk's outside the ring. Cena's the only one up. He sees that. He goes into the ring. He's in the ring. He puts up the ladder. He knows he's by himself, and he starts to climb up the ladder. Now, they're zoomed solely on John Cena. Right? You can't see anything else in the camera shot. He's reaching. He's struggling to get up the ladder. He's reaching for the case, and all of a sudden he stops. And then they pan out a little bit, and there's CM Punk, one of his biggest rivals, on the ladder. They start fighting. Punk hits him, pushes Cena off the ladder. Punk wins Money in the Bank. The next SmackDown after, John Cena goes to Punk and says, "Look, man, you were the better man at Money in the Bank. You beat me. You deserve that briefcase. But I really desperately need a match against Cody Rhodes to win my 17th championship. I'm running out of time." Notice the creative direction is he's running out of time to beat the record. And so the offer is hey, night one of SummerSlam, right? I have no other chances to get a match at SummerSlam. Night one of SummerSlam. Let's put that Money in the Bank briefcase up on the line here. If I beat you, I win the briefcase. And if this happens, notice to Cody Rhodes, if I win on night one, I hope your schedule for night two is open. Because I'm fighting you. Right? CM Punk says, "You know what, John? Solely out of respect for you, I'll accept. But you better bring your A game." So we get the night one SummerSlam. John Cena, CM Punk, main event. CM Punk wins. John Cena doesn't get a match against Cody. Right? Cody could still be involved in something in SummerSlam again. We're not trying to book everything around. This is why I'm not booking the show, right? I'm just booking the run, right? Because that's what happens, right? Oftentimes is, well, you book this part. That's why they have a team, right? You book this part, you book this part, you book this part. We'll bring it together. We'll finalize the show, right? Anyway, so again, he loses night one of SummerSlam to Punk. Cena goes to Otis, and Otis says that he wants to make Cena versus Cody, but he's not about giving opportunities. You have to earn them. You need to prove you can win, because, John, you haven't won anything. So the next PLE is Clash in Paris. This is the turning point, right? This is the turning point that leads to... So Otis essentially says, "John, I'll give you one final promise here in your career. The next big event is Survivor Series in San Diego. If you can prove to me that you can win and can earn an opportunity, I'll give you Cody Rhodes at Survivor Series." So the next PLE after SummerSlam is Clash at Paris. I agree with what Miz said on Saturday. Miz should have had a match against Cena. So this would have been Miz. And with it in France, he has Maurice with him. I don't understand why. Granted, I know Maurice is Canadian, right? But she's French-Canadian. Like, she was booked from France, if I am correct, if I understand correctly. Like, it would have just made perfect sense. We would have loved to all see Maurice as well, right? And John Cena beats The Miz. He finally wins a match. He beats The Miz, but to end the show, Brock Lesnar comes back and attacks John Cena. Sort of like, I think that's how we ended Clash at Paris to begin with, right? Brock came back and attacked Cena randomly. Well, the same thing happens. That was a great, right? The only thing that's really the same that I would book is Lesnar and Cena at WrestlePalooza. That's the same booking. I think that's a perfect match. He beats Brock Lesnar at WrestlePalooza. Now he has a 2-win streak. At Crown Jewel, Nick Aldis says, leading into Crown Jewel, right, in Perth, in Australia, the finals of a number 1 contendership tournament, John Cena starts winning matches against lower-level mid-card guys. He's in the finals of the number 1 contenders match. Who his opponent is doesn't matter, right, at this point, right? But John Cena wins the number 1 contendership. And Aldis says, you earned it. You have your match against Cody at Survivor Series. At Survivor Series. Notice, this is the last PLE of John Cena's career. At Survivor Series, John Cena comes on, main event against Cody. He comes out. He beats Cody Rhodes. We're down to the wire, the end of his career, right? One more match after the Survivor Series match. He beats Cody Rhodes at Survivor Series. Wins the championship. He wins it. He gets a mic to go off the air and he says, my last show. Now, I know they tried to end John Cena's career in Boston. I know they tried to put it in Boston and it just wasn't able to happen. I could give 2 craps about how much money the arena wanted. I would have ended John Cena's career in Boston, but there's another reason why I want it in Boston, because of who John Cena is about to put over. If you know what I'm talking about, you're already at, because this was my plan in January. You know where I'm going, right? I already had this sort of planned out in January, right? Anyway, so rather than Saturday night's main event in DC, John Cena's final match would have been Saturday night's main event in Boston. I probably would have ran an event, not Saturday night's main event. I would have ran a December PLE, to be honest with you. And it would have been called like Ruthless Aggression, right? As homage to John Cena. Because that's essentially what we got with Saturday night's main event. We got a PLE. Or since we were showcasing NXT, maybe, maybe you could have, WWE presents, create a new name, pass the torch or whatever. I don't know. You could have created, but anyway, either way, Saturday night's main event in Boston, right? John Cena doesn't have an opponent, though, because his opponent is classic John Cena. My final match, I'm issuing an open challenge for this championship. He says, either way, I'm leaving the title here. But if you want some, come get some. And we're in Boston. There's one other dude on the roster that's from Boston. Or that central area. His name is Carmelo Hayes. And Carmelo Hayes comes to the ring, cuts a promo on John, talking about, John, this is a mistake. You wanted to go out on top, and I'm not going to let that happen. And John Cena loses. He gets pinned by Carmelo, putting Carmelo over. Right? And Carmelo Hayes wins the WWE Championship. Right? Now, to end 2025. You have the sign of respect. You end the show the same way we ended this year in real life. I think that's a perfect way for Cena to go out. I think, and because the whole again, the same thing happens. You put over superstars. You hit some of the main feuds that you could have, that you could have hit with Miz and Lesnar and Orton and Punk. You have the Cody match, passing the torch to Cody as the next John Cena. You reach 17 and you put over Carmelo Hayes. Right? I think that is right, but you also put over Gunther, because Gunther's mass heel run could have started at Mania, right, and gone the whole year again, right? So that's how I would have done it. All right. So real quick before we get to the questions from the Discord, I want to talk about a few things that I'm looking forward and hoping for in 2026. First, I would love for elite levels, not all elite, but elite level storytelling. Like, now that Cena's final year is out of the way, can Triple H get back to some elite level storytelling like we had in 24 and 23? Second, I cannot wait for YouTube TV to get their partnership with the ESPN app so that I can, watch PLEs. I'm really hoping that happens here soon. I really want to watch Royal Rumble. Second, what I'm hoping is that TNA is successful on AMC TV. That's a great partnership, good deal. I hope it helps the production value. I hope it helps put people over. And I just hope it's ultimately successful, because that's what we want, right? And then I would love for WWE to utilize new stars and not just use the same rotation of the same old, same old. You got a lot of young talent that's hungry to be used, and I really hope that they start to feature some of them. But with that, let us go into the final time, the questions from the Discord. Before we get there, we'll go down to, I wasn't planning on talking football on this episode, but this is the community show, and we talk NFL sometimes. We can talk a little bit. I don't really have much to talk about. We could talk about the Bills-Patriots game from last week. It was kind of sloppy. I would honestly say that second half was the most disappointed I've ever felt in the team this year. I don't know what happened. Like, two completely different halves from the Patriots there. You can't win games and not put up points in the second half. Like, you can't win by punting, right? We couldn't even get in the field goal range. Like, we couldn't move the ball offensively in the second half, other than Travion. But yeah, I hope we got that fixed. Patriots just have to win one more and we clinch a playoff spot, which is a success in and of itself. I predicted us to go 12-5 anyway. So I mean, it's a good year. Now, it's a good year. We got Baltimore this week on Sunday Night Football. We got and then the Jets and the Dolphins to end the year. And the Jets are just awful, and Tua just got benched, so I'm not worried about Quinn Ewers. So we should win out at least two of the games. Baltimore's a scary game because they're hungry to try to make the playoffs and win the division. So that might be tough. But I think we should win out, and 14-3 is not bad for this team that everyone predicted to have less than 8 wins. So I need Jacksonville to beat the Broncos. And who else the Broncos got? I need the Broncos to lose 2, basically. I need them to lose this week to Jacksonville. And next week, the Broncos have the Chiefs. Well, they're not going to lose that game. So week 18, the Broncos got the Chargers. Depending on how that goes, if Jacksonville can beat Denver this week and LA can win, the Chargers got the Cowboys. So if the Chargers beat the Cowboys, Jacksonville beats the Broncos. Broncos are probably going to beat the Chargers. So let's just say that happens. Broncos beat the Chiefs, lose to Jacksonville. They'll be 13-3 coming into the final game. The Chargers beat the Cowboys. It's 11. If they can beat the Texans, that's 12. There's a theoretical chance the Chargers and the Broncos could be meeting week 18 for the division. Did the Chargers beat the Broncos the first time? They did. Yes. So if the Chargers come in the last week of the season at 12-4, and the Broncos come in at 13-3, you see where I'm going? Chargers beat the Broncos, they tie at 13-4. The Chargers have the tiebreaker for the division because they swept the Broncos. That's what I need to happen. Now, ultimately, if the Chiefs could upset the Broncos, and that'll be perfect as well, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. But I need the Chargers. I need the Chargers and the Jaguars to beat the Broncos, so that the Patriots can get the 1 seed if we can win out. Because if we win out, then we end up if we win out, we end up 14-3. It'll be like a 2-way tie. Something like that. Yeah, because if we win out, we're 14-3. If the Chargers lose out, or if the Chargers win out, they're 13-4. That's what I said, right? Yeah. So if we win out, we're 14-3. I need the Chargers to win out. And more so, I really just need the Chargers to beat the Broncos. I need the Broncos to lose 2 of the 3, so that they're 13-4 and we're 14-3, right? That's ultimately what I need to happen, so that we can become the 1 seed. But yeah, we really put ourselves in a really crappy situation by losing to the Bills here. You see who the Bills end the season with: the Jets, the Eagles, and the Browns. So all I need is for the Bills to lose to the Eagles, because they're not losing to the Browns, they're not losing to the Jets. I need the Eagles to beat the Bills. We win the division. We need to win out, of course, but anyway, we should lock up a playoff spot this week for the Patriots. Outside of that, let me tell you something. I know everyone's all up on the Rams and the Seahawks, and last night was a fun game. I think both are highly overrated, in my opinion. Both teams are highly overrated. And there's a team known as the San Francisco 49ers that I actually think are the best team in that division. And they should be locking up a playoff berth here soon, right? So, like, for the AFC, you're really no one's locked in but Denver in the NFC. But there's only 9 teams able to. There's 8 other teams battling for playoff spots right now. With Denver's in, and then so 2 through 9 are the only teams eligible to get in. And really, the only reason Baltimore's eligible is because there's 3 games left, and they're 1 game behind the Steelers for the division. So realistically, they could win the division. Same thing with like the Colts. Granted, they're battling, but realistically, New England's getting in, Buffalo's getting in, the Chargers are getting in, Jacksonville's getting in. So really, the last spot that we're fighting for is the Pittsburgh-Baltimore battle to who wins the division, and that's going to end on, funny enough, the last week of the season. We'll get that battle if things go, now I can't have the Ravens win this week, so, they'll need the Steelers to lose. But realistically, Steelers-Ravens week 18 is going to be a big game. So when we look at this playoff race, we look at the NFC, though. I was talking about the Niners. There's a lot. Technically, the Cowboys are still in contention. Only because they're 2.5 behind Philly with 3 games left. Philly wins this week. They win the division, and I think Dallas gets eliminated. Dallas has like a 1% chance to make the playoffs. They're like 2.5 behind the 7th seed because of the tie. So again, Philly wins, they win the division. I think Dallas gets eliminated if Philly just wins one more. Carolina's only option is to win the division to get in, or to hope that Green Bay has a massive failure. But they control their destiny. They got the Buccaneers twice, right? They control their destiny for the Panthers, but that's their only way in. And then Detroit versus Green Bay is a battle for the 7th seed. I think it's a half game difference, but they've already played each other both times. The Lions got the Steelers, the Vikings, and the Bears. So that'll be interesting. Cowboys, I'm assuming, are ending with the Vikings then. Yep, Ravens, Bears, Ravens, Vikings. So, the Packers could take the division, I believe, if they beat the Bears this week. They could become first place in the division. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll see. But San Fran, sitting at 10-4 as the 6th seed, realistically could still win the division if Seattle and the Rams fall off. Seattle and the Rams both have 2 games remaining. So yeah, the Rams are beating the Falcons and the Cardinals, so the Rams are probably going to finish 13-4, meaning the Niners are going to have to win out to surpass the Rams, the Colts, the Bears, the Seahawks. The Niners got a tough-ass schedule, bro. The Niners might lose out. I'm just going to say, I think they'll beat the Colts. They'll beat the Colts, but and I think they'll beat the Bears. I think the Bears are the biggest pretenders in the NFC. And I think the Seahawks are pretenders. So when I really think about it, I think the Niners are going to win out. Niners will finish 13-4. I think the Seahawks, and that's the team I was looking. I think the Rams might finish 13-4. The Niners will finish 13-4, in my opinion, which leaves the Seahawks with the Panthers and the Niners 13-4. I think I genuinely believe we could have a 3-way tie for this division at 13-4. And if that is the case, the Niners beat the Seahawks. Let's assume the Niners beat the Seahawks to end the year. They beat them to start the year, so they would jump the Seahawks. Let's see what they did with the Rams. They're 1-1. They split with the Rams. And then the Rams, Seahawks, The Seahawks won last night, and they're 1-1 there. I'm not exactly certain how that'll play out. I know the Niners would trump the Seahawks, so it really would just come down to the Rams-Niners, and it would be what, common opponents or whatever. I don't know. We'll let the scheduling and all of them figure that out. But that NFC West could get interesting. Niners could still win the division. But anyway, let's go to these questions. That's all I really got to talk about with football. Other than college football playoffs start this weekend, and I'm really hoping JMU comes up there. They're probably going to lose, but the line's 23. I think James Madison is like 23-point underdogs, and I really hope they make it a close game. Just because I'm a proponent for them being in and for a group of fives to be in, and there's a lot of people, namely SEC fans. I know a lot of people are like, oh, the only people who are hating on JMU being in are Notre Dame. No, Notre Dame fans are upset at Miami and Alabama. They're not upset at JMU. The people who are upset at JMU are the SEC fans who think that they deserve 8 spots in the playoffs. Right? I don't know. Anyway, I hope JMU goes in and wins. I think that would be absolutely hilarious. But it also, the question that I always ask is why do you immediately write off a team like Tulane or JMU when the game hasn't been played yet? This is why we play the game. It's any given Saturday, right? But I also think it would destroy a lot of narrative pushing about the playoffs. But either way, this playoff is corrupted because Notre Dame is the best team in the country, and Alabama gets in above them, Miami gets in above them. And so it's a corrupted playoff anyway. I think Notre Dame is the best team in the country and had an opportunity to win a national championship. And they 100% are in the right to boycott any bowl game, because my mindset on bowl games is we should just cancel all of them because none of them matter now that there's a playoff. I would just say that. But anyway, let's go into the final questions from the Discord. I tried to focus this solely on wrestling related because there's the end of the year thoughts on wrestling. Now, Kara asked some other questions as well, and I'll give her a pass because she's the queen of the WETOODEEP universe here, right? She's the queen of this entertainment empire. We don't question the queen; she can do what she wants. Plus, it's very important. We'll talk about her questions when we get there. But we'll start with DJ Wavy D. First off, welcome back to the community after your hiatus from wrestling. We've missed you, and you're back now. And he comes out with a banger question outside of the Big Four pay-per-views. For those who don't know what those are, PLEs, Mania, Rumble, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. Those are the Big Four. Give us a top 5 list of WWE PLEs that are usually pretty liable and entertaining. And so I need a clarification. Can this be NXT PLEs, or does it only have to be main roster? And he said mix them up. All right, which helps me out here. So the first 2 on my list are main roster, and these are entertaining and probably the only other really meaningful PLEs outside of the Big Four, Money in the Bank and Elimination Chamber, right? Honestly, if you did 6 PLEs a year and you did Mania, Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Elimination Chamber, and Money in the Bank, those were your only 6 PLEs for the year, you'd be fine. I 100% believe that. You don't need a Clash at Paris. You don't need a Crown Jewel. You don't need any of those type shows, right? You only a backlash, right? You only typically do those to fill dates. They're fillers, right? They're B tier, C tier PLEs. What I would call the big six, so the big four plus Chamber and Money in the Bank. Those are really the meaningful PLEs, right? So, the final three on my list are NXT though. Stand and Deliver has to be on this list. Stand and Deliver is typically one of the most entertaining nights, main roster and NXT of the year. Like, definitely the better show this year. Really good Stand and Deliver this year. And so that one's on the list. Halloween Havoc's always a fun one for me, especially with the spinning the wheel and all the gimmicks and that. So that one's typically always entertaining. And then I think NXT ending the year of PLE calendars with Deadline every year. Deadline's a really fun show. Now, what do all of these have in common outside of Stand and Deliver, right? What makes Chamber, Money in the Bank, Halloween Havoc, Deadline so fun? There's gimmicks, right? So so Chamber, you have the only two matches that matter are the Chamber matches, right? But those Chamber matches typically are fun, and there's a lot of stake. Now, I wish every now and then we would do a Chamber match where the champion was in the Chamber. Rather than winning a spot, you can win the title, right? Money in the Bank, there's something on the line. Really, the only two matches that matter and that are fun are the Money in the Bank matches, but they deliver almost every year. Halloween Havoc, what makes it so fun? Well, what's the gimmick for this match going to be, right? And it's typically an entertaining night. And then again, Deadline, it's the Iron Survivor match. Those are fun, right? Those are fun, 25-minute matches. So for 50 minutes of a two to 2.5 hour show, 50 minutes of it's going to be straight wrestling in these Iron Survivor matches. It's a fun night. Deadline's always one of my favorite events of the year to end the calendar year. Second, I think this is B Master who asked this. He said, if they, being WWE, loved Cena so much and valued his opinions, why haven't we seen more of NXT versus WWE? One, I think if you oversaturate that market, then it means less. But secondly, I think it's smart to not do invasion type angles or anything like I don't think we should pit NXT against the other two main roster brands. I think the reason we don't do that is because they want to show a unified company, right? So Raw, it's part of the reason why I don't think we'll ever get like a bragging rights event again, where Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. I think what they want to show, I think what Endeavor and TKO want to show is like, we're all WWE, we're all united, and we're not really competing against each other. You want to try to, show a unity there. What we saw at Saturday night's main event wasn't NXT versus main roster. It was, right, in the terms of we're pitting NXT against the main roster. It was we're showcasing the best of what we have. I think what we should do, and if maybe this is where you're leaning into, I think NXT should have a part in. Personally, I think NXT should have a part in War Games every year. I would love to have a triple threat War Games match. Or a triple threat Survivor Series 5-way. 5 from each brand, right? And we showcase the best of each roster at Survivor Series. I would love that type of event. And maybe we see more. I don't have an actual answer why the booking wouldn't do let's showcase NXT on the but also, can I just be honest? Outside of Sol Ruka, Obafemi, Javon Evans, Trick Williams, Leon Slater. And really, Leon was only there because of Javon. Like, who are we showcasing, right? Because it's almost better to move someone like a Chelsea Green down to NXT with Ethan Page and to showcase them on NXT TV. Like, I think the way they do it is fine. Again, if you oversaturate that where it's all the time NXT being showcased, then you ruin the showcase. It means nothing because you're always showcasing them. But I also, I'm sure there's a business reason for it. There's also, like, you're not going to put Jasper Troy on Raw. He'll stand out because he's freakishly large. And I know this because I saw him live last week. Jasper Troy is freakishly large. This dude is big. Right? But you're not going to put him on a Raw or SmackDown to showcase him because he's not ready yet. And NXT, it typically is that way. You don't have a lot of people. You don't have a roster of people that you're able to showcase on the big stage in NXT right now. You just don't. Either they're not ready from a performance standpoint where they're still sort of developing their talents, or you take someone like a JC Jane per se. JC Jane fits in NXT because I don't think JC Jane would fit on the main roster. I just don't think she has the appeal of, and she doesn't stand out in any way. And so you're not going to showcase her. She's. Can I just say this? I like JC Jane, but JC Jane is hardly over in NXT. I think, I'll say it this way, if JC Jane disappeared, I think there's a lot of the crowd that would say, you know what, she's not even the best in her own gimmick, in her own team, that Fallon Henley's sort of the best part of Fatal Influence. But then, like a Fallon Henley, no one really knows who she is. There's not a name recognition across the brand, right? I think the biggest, I guess this could be the real answer now. We've talked our way through this. Is you got to understand who watches NXT. It is the more hardcore WWE fans, right? That's why they only get 600, 700,000 views. Because you're not getting the mainstream to tune into. And I think that's why they showcased them on Cena's last night, was to because they knew they would have 1, 2, maybe possibly up to 3, 4 million people watching Cena's last show. I'm not going to go up to 4, but possibly 3. But you were going to have your normal mainstream audience watching Cena's last battle. And I think the idea was, well, if they're doing this in NXT, maybe I can check it out. I don't think it's going to... I haven't seen the numbers for NXT for this week, the ratings, to see if there was any pull that way. I just don't think that there's a lot of name recognition or brand recognition across the aisle of viewership. And so you don't want to put a Fallon Henley in a position where she gets completely just like, who is this person on the main roster, right? You really have to protect what you have with Fatal Influence, right? Like, Fallon Henley's important on NXT. If you go and throw her on the main roster, right, she's ready. But if you go and throw her there without the name recognition and without the without fans knowing how to treat her, I think that's part of the reason as well. Next question, I think, from Wavy D was, in your honest opinion, how would you rate Triple H and Tony Khan? I'm going to go solely off of this year. My view on Tony Khan is this. We'll start with him. My view on Tony Khan is this. He's a mark who he knows what he wants to do. He knows what his fans like. But I don't think he understands that it's such a niche that it's never going to grow the business. His business model isn't scalable. And so I think he's comfortable booking the way he books for the fans that he has. And he's fine with it. And I think that's okay. I wouldn't call him like a genius in any way, or like, but I think he does what's good for AEW and for the sickos. But I think when it comes to someone like me, I think when you take the casual audience who look at what happens on AEW and their response is always, well, this isn't really good. Well, it's because Tony Khan doesn't consider that point of view, right? And I think that's very dangerous because the point of business is to grow. If you're not growing, you're dying. But I'm not going to say he's awful. Yeah. And when it comes to Triple H, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that the poor booking this year was because he was preoccupied with giving Cena a run. 2026 is his defining year for me, though. If the booking doesn't get better in 2026, we have to have this conversation. Because here's always been the question, right? We always say, like we said, 2022, 2023, even 2024 was some pretty decent booking, right? After Vince sort of leaves in around 22, right? And the merger happens and all of this stuff, Triple H takes control and we're always like, Triple H is doing a good job. And I've had this view that Triple H hasn't really added anything of importance to the show, that the main roster thrived off the Bloodline story, which was a Vince creation, and he just sort of lived off of other people's creative, right? And he even sort of, once he got full control of the Bloodline and he started touching it, the MFT stuff, Solo is probably the only person that's not Roman Reigns or Jey Uso. Right, Solo's like the only other interesting person from the Triple H Bloodline saga after, we all knew what would happen. So the question is Triple H actually as much as a Nostradamus as people love to give him credit for? I don't think he's awful. Like, I'm not going to be one of these, this bald fraud. I'm not going to be that guy. I don't think he's that bad. I just... I question if he is actually as smart in the booking category. I think Shawn Michaels is better, just personally, at running and booking a show. And so my question is he actually that good at creative, or was he able to take hold of a ship that was already sailing? And he got it to dock, but it was already on course. All he had to do was sort of hold the wheel. It was already dialed in, right? Or for another example, right? Vince dialed in the sight. All he had to do was pull the trigger. It was going to go where it was going to go because Vince already said it was going to go, right? I don't know. This year is really an important year to me in the Triple H era of booking, because if we have another bad booking year and the fans aren't happy with it, I think there could be a change where Triple H is expelled from being head booker. I really do. Next question. I know AVD asked this one. We were discussing this a little bit in the Discord. He asked, would you be in favor of pro wrestling being implemented as an after-school program or extracurricular activity in high schools across the country? And if so, what would be some ideas you would have while implementing it? So first off, my immediate thought was, let's answer the question and then we can break it down. If in a perfect world, absolutely, I think this should be part of, I think this would be a very smart business model for local indie companies a lot of them who use a lot of these high school gyms anyway for shows, I think it would be a cool aspect. Here's where it gets difficult. This is where the rational, logical part of my brain kicks in, right? Is if you were to implement this, you would have to be very, 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 very cautious in how you market this. First off, you cannot market this as pro wrestling. For two reasons. The commission will shut it down. Most states have athletic commissions that govern pro wrestling, and most states, it's in order to be considered a pro wrestler, you could not do matches until you're 18. Technically, you could train before you're 18, but you can't do paid matches where you're on the poster and on the card until you're 18, right? I also think from a community standpoint, there's a stigma against pro wrestling and marketing like, hey, come learn pro wrestling. I think certain communities across the country would not allow it to be labeled pro wrestling. So you would have to market it essentially as drama class with athletics. That's essentially what it would have to be. It would have to be the mere essentials of the entertainment world. So I think if you labeled it as sports entertainment, you'd be fine. But the training itself would essentially have to be learning how to do promos, maybe learning bumps individually, but I don't even think you would be able to do matches against each other in this aspect, right? But learning how to run the ropes, maybe getting into shape, learning how to promo, learning how to sell. Definitely you would not be allowed to use weapons, have blood, or any of that. Theoretically, you could put on performances, but you would have to call them performances. You couldn't call them matches. You couldn't use words like the card, right? Like the wrestling terms, again, because you're trying to get around the athletic commission, and their rules and their governance, and they're very strict on it. And what could be done, it would essentially be a lot of grappling. I don't necessarily think, right? And you could have a very good intro to wrestling, or intro to sports entertainment, maybe you could call it, or like, right, type club or extracurricular activity. I think that'll be fine. It's very different than amateur wrestling. I don't think that you could like put on full-blown matches, right? You would have to call them like performance. Like you couldn't call it like come to the pro wrestling event. You would have to say, hey, you come into the performance tonight, right? Like you would have to treat it like it's drama club. And so I'm not against it. I just think how you actually put it into practice is right. And so I like Wavy D's reasoning for why he's for it is, and I actually agree, is in I'm going to say around 90% of the country, it's really hard to find a reputable training school to get into that's affordable, right? And so I definitely agree. Now that's the other big thing is, where are you finding your trainers from? Who, like, licensing? How are you doing this, right? And so I think on paper, it's a really good idea. Something that if we had it when I was in high school, would 100% would have done it. the problem comes in is how you practice it, how you utilize it, and stuff, and then how like you're gonna need waivers signed. You're gonna need like there's a lot of liability in it. I think I'll also say this: a lot of trainers, a lot of reputable trainers, don't train people under 18 because of the risk of training a minor, right? Lawsuits and all that, right? And so it's really one of those things where it's a good idea. I just don't know how practical it would be in application, right? So I'm down for it if we could find a way to do it. Yeah. Next question. These are from Kara, the last three questions, excuse me. So he says, with the news that Mick Foley has cut ties with WWE because of his stance on President Trump, even though the president hasn't made a WWE appearance in forever, I also respect Mick Foley's beliefs. Is it fair to punish WWE even though we know he'll be back for the money? They aren't. Here's my thing with Mick Foley, right? This whole thing is stupid, bro. First off, Mick, I'm just going to give my opinion. No one's thought about you in forever, Mick. No one actually cares. Here's my problem with... I'm just going to be honest with you. This whole situation, and it's not because Mick Foley's a liberal and I'm a conservative. Mick, no one cares. No one actually cares. This isn't an airport. You don't have to announce your departure. You don't want to be a part of WWE. That's your choice. No one cares. No one cares. And Mick Foley comes out white knighting like, I just can't stand that WWE has a relationship with this guy. Bro, no one cares. No one really cares about it, Mick. And so, I know I don't care. Like, if it wasn't for the question being asked, this is probably a story a lot of people are covering because now Cornette's got involved, and Cornette and Jack Posebic, which is a right-wing news guy, they're going at it. Jack Posebic is... So here's the thing about Jack. I'm not a big fan of Posebic because he's a grifter of all grifters. On the right... Well, most right-wing influencers are grifters, but it is what it is. Most of the internet are grifters, let's just be honest. But Posebic, he's playing along with it, and basically said... So, America Fest, the TPUSA conference, is happening this weekend. And it's going to be a big one. A lot of people are there because it's the first one without Charlie, first one Erica's running, and it's an emotional event. Probably outside of Charlie's memorial, this is going to be the second biggest political event of the year. In terms of just the importance of it, right? And so that's happening this weekend. So Jack Posebic's in Phoenix for that event. And he's saying, Cornette, man, meet me down here. We'll set up a match right now. Jack's playing into it all fun. And Cornette. It is what it is, right? Not surprised about it. But hey, I just don't care. Like, no one cares. Mick, no one really cares. You want to leave? That's cool. You don't have to announce it because no one even... I didn't even know Mick Foley even was still on a Legends contract. I'm just going to be honest with you. I kind of assumed he was just done with wrestling. I don't understand... I'm just going to say I don't understand that generation and their infatuation with making everything about themselves. The boomer generation just thinks that... I'm sorry, this is just how I feel. The boomer generation are is one of the most entitled generations we've ever. Like they want to complain about the millennials, they want to complain about Gen X, they want to complain about Gen Alpha, but the Boomer generation. Let's just be honest. They created a system politically and economically where it benefited them, and still to this day benefits them. And then complains that that the generations after them, which they did nothing to help, by the way, that they're too lazy, this, that, and the third. No. You guys took all the money for yourself, and so a lot of the generations after you are struggling because of the situations you did. It's all right. I hate to be like, oh, okay, Boomer, but it really is. Realistically, that's the reality of the world, is that the Boomer generation set the rest of the world up, the generations after them, for failure. We're just going to be honest with you. And they want to make everything about them. Mick Foley, no one cares about you. You had your time in the sun. You had your 15 minutes. No one cares about you. Right? That's literally how I feel about this. He has the right to feel and believe whatever he wants to, but like I just don't understand why, especially left-wing people, just feel the need to address every single thing that's going on in their mind. Like, you could have left quietly, but you want it to cause a scene in the wrestling world. Right, for whatever reason, it makes no sense to me. Right. Next question, which is, for me, a very personal. And when I say personal, like, it's not like about my personal life, but it's personal in that it hits home, quite literally. So yesterday morning, so me and Kara, we both watch NASCAR, so that's sort of something we connect on. And so this is the NASCAR question. So for the non-NASCAR fans out there, you may just hold on for this question. But driver Greg Biffle, which was more recently in the news over the last 2 or 3 years here in North Carolina, because after Hurricane Helene, which completely destroyed Asheville and the mountains of North Carolina, he was very essential in the disaster relief, using his personal planes and helicopters and all of that to get supplies up there. Well, his wife, his 2 kids, and there were some other, I guess, friends. I know the pilot and stuff. They were all involved in a plane crash. So they were on the way up to somewhere to see driver Cletus McFarland. They were doing like a Christmas event. And apparently, from the details that I know, the plane took off. For whatever reason, it turned around. There was some sort of apparent issue with the plane. It took off. I read engine failure or something along either way, the plane crashed, and Greg, his wife, and his 2 kids, and a few other people who were there on the plane have been confirmed to have been taken from us. And so rest in peace to Greg, absolutely. I'll just be honest. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, Greg Biffle was my favorite. But he was definitely one of those drivers I didn't hate. And I enjoyed a lot of his paint schemes. I'm a paint scheme guy. I really am. But he was just one of those dudes that I didn't hate him. Right. And that's essentially where this question is so in honor, what are your top 5 favorite and your top 5 least favorite drivers? And I don't think Kara understands what this question is to me, because when it gets to the least favorite, there's one on this list she's just not going to like, but that's okay. Let's talk about my top 5 favorite drivers. So we'll start with my favorite of all time, that's Jeff Gordon. Without a doubt, ever since I started watching NASCAR, right? The day that was my driver, right? And it was probably because he had a rainbow painted scheme. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. His paint scheme was fire, right? But Jeff Gordon was my guy growing up. And then he retired. And rather than finding a new driver, I'm just going to say, whoever they put in the 24 car after him, that'd be my guy. So the guy who took that spot was Chase Elliott. So he's number 2 on this list, Chase Elliott. I still cheer for Chase every now and then, but my current favorite driver is Noah Gragson. He's not on the greatest team, or in the best car, but he's a really good driver, and he's one of the only personalities in NASCAR now. So Noah Gragson's my favorite now. As far as other drivers, so I said my favorite of all time, my next favorite, my current favorite. There's 2 others on the list here. Never really cheered for him in the NASCAR Cup or the series under in the Busch Series, but in the Truck Series, my favorite driver of all time in the NASCAR Truck Series was Ron Hornaday. So he's on the list. I actually have a is this a Cup or? Yeah, this is a Busch Series. The secondary series, what we now call the O'Reilly Series, this year was Busch Series back then. Ron Hornaday, when he drove the 3 car for Richard Childress. I have a signed car from him here. I have a couple signed cards on this shelf next to me. One of them is that Hornaday car, and then the 5th driver on the list is Dale Jr. I never got to really experience Dale Sr. because he died in 01, and I was born in 97. But I did enjoy watching Jr. Is this Jr. car signed? I don't think it is. I have one of my favorite Jr. paint schemes. When he drove the 8 Budweiser car, the Dave Matthews paint scheme I have next to me. And then I have a couple signed Jeff Gordon ones over here. I might send photos in the Discord. Put those up real quick. But yeah, so those are my top 5. Jeff Gordon, Noah Gragson, Ron Hornaday, Chase Elliott, and Dale Jr. My 5 least favorite. These are more current or drivers from my lifetime. We'll start with the one I hated the most, Jimmie Johnson. Absolutely despised him, which is crazy because he was Jeff Gordon's teammate. Absolutely despised Jimmie Johnson, bro. I'm just going to say this. Jimmie Johnson would not be a 7-time champion if it wasn't for the championship format. And if you're for the non-race driving fan, the non-NASCAR fan, you're not even sure what I'm talking about. But if it wasn't for the points format, what we called the chase for the cup, if it wasn't for that format, Jimmie Johnson would literally only be a 4-time champion, and Gordon would have 7. By the way, if we ran the Winston Cup points that they ran up to 02, Johnson would have 4 titles, Gordon would have 7. Johnson is and we see this now because he's actually getting in a car where he actually has to drive. Anytime he gets in a car, he's now the team owner for Legacy Motor Club. But anytime he gets in a car, he struggles because he's not a good driver. Him and Chad Canals were very good strategists. And, being a Hendrick driver in the peak of Hendrick's success definitely helped. But, yeah, I despised Jimmie Johnson growing up. I absolutely despised him. Second, and to this day might be the driver I hate the most. Because it's gone against just hating him on the racetrack. Like, anytime I just hear him speak, anytime he does an interview, he has his own podcast now. Denny Hamlin just gets on my ever-loving nerve. Now, I will say this. Denny Hamlin is the reason we might go back to a normal NASCAR. So I got to respect his advocacy against, like, the charter system and all of that, the lawsuits that were just happening. But anything outside of that, that's the only nicest thing I'll say about Denny. I do not like Denny Hamlin. I think he's a crybaby. I think he as a Gordon fan, him and Gordon got into it at Martinsville once for the lead and the win. And I know Rubin's racing, but like Denny he gets on my nerves, bro. I do not like Denny Hamlin. Number 3 is Kyle Busch, and I have a love-hate relationship with Kyle Busch. And now I just don't care about him because he's completely useless to the sport. He doesn't win. He just runs mid-pack nowadays. But like in Kyle Busch's like rowdy era where he just was annoying, right? Number 4 might get me in trouble, and that's Bubba Wallace. And I don't hate him for the reasons a lot of people hate him. I hate him because NASCAR laid out essentially a red carpet to make Bubba Wallace the feature name of the sport, and he didn't earn that, right? The whole Talladega, there's a noose in my garage, when it really wasn't a noose, it was the garage pull, the door to pull the door down, and that whole thing that happened in 2020 with the where they paraded him down pit road and like this whole like we're gonna do better at relationships with minorities, and he got this whole parade, and it was definitely just a PR stunt. And I'm just gonna be honest, he's not good enough for that. Like, he's not a good driver, and I'm a talent guy. Like, I could care less about what you look like. There are good drivers that are African American that got half the recognition that Bubba Wallace got in the sport, that were better than Bubba Wallace. Someone like a Raja Caruth, I think Raja's already better than Bubba Wallace. I like Raja, I really do, right? I think Bubba is a drama queen as well. And he's just not good, and he's essentially been given a golden opportunity, and I think he's taking a seat from other capable drivers. This is just me. And then number 5, this is where I get in trouble with Kara, because I think this is her favorite driver. But this man annoys me to no end. Connecticut's own Joey Logano. I just don't know what it is about this man. I literally don't have a reason why I dislike. I have no reason at all to dislike Joey Logano. I just don't like him. I just don't know what it is. I hope he grew his hair back, because I saw a picture of him bald after the season ended. He cut his hair up. Please grow it back, Joey. I know you're going bald, but like hair, go ask Cena where to get hair plugs. Please don't be. That was interesting. Look. Anyway, so there's that. We talked about NASCAR here. She also asked if I became a driver and I could pick my like design my car, what would it look like? That's a hard thing to describe. I made an AI image of it. It's in the Discord. Essentially, I chose the four most redneck sponsors I can think of. Because that's the heart of NASCAR, right? Is the hillbilly rednecks that started the sport. And so the 97 Waffle House Chevrolet, also sponsored by Fireball, Pall Mall, and Bass Pro Shops. Yeah, I think I achieved what I wanted to do there. I wish the NASCAR 25 video game had a create a car suit for the PC, or not PC, excuse me, for PlayStation. that I could create that car, because that would be absolutely fantastic. I don't have the game yet. I'm waiting for it to go on sale, because I don't buy games until they're on sale. But anyway, last question that she asked, and this is how we'll end the final episode of the year. What is your opinion on Puka Nacua losing focus before a very important game and going on streams with Aiden Ross violating Rams? Here again, just like the McFoley thing, I don't pay attention to the drama. I don't care. Can I just say something? There's a reason why the Patriots were successful under Belichick in the early era. And the reason why I think Vrabel's going to have that same success. You just don't do that. You just don't do it. And if you do it, you're not there. Here's my issue with a lot of these players. A lot of teams who won't discipline some of these entitled people like Puka. Like Puka is complaining, I saw the other day, because and I don't remember who posted it, and the way he posted it was crazy. I think it was Dov Kleeman on X, I think, was who posted this, about Puka Nacua was complaining about that he can't afford a house in California because on his rookie salary after taxes, he's only bringing home like $480,000 for this season. And I'm sitting here thinking, I wish I could bring home $480,000. Now, I don't live in California, but if I did, I probably could afford to live on $480,000. I know it's expensive out there. Like, I'm not going to deny that. But you're complaining on $480,000 here, Puka? Right? Some of these people. So if he violated their PR policy, here's my question: why did he play last night? Because he's going to do it again unless you discipline him. Right? And that so yes, he's good. But let me explain. Biggest game of the year. Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl against the Eagles benches Malcolm Butler for missing a meeting. Malcolm Butler either missed it or was late to walk through of the game in the hotel. Right? It was like the day or two before the game. What they do, they get together, they were in the ballroom, and they essentially are running through, they're scripting the game, essentially. And all the players are expected to be there. And Malcolm Butler was either late or missed it. And so what happened? Malcolm Butler, the number one corner on that team, a very viable player needed to win the Super Bowl, in the Super Bowl, gets benched. Patriots end up losing that game. You know what the principle is? I'm okay losing. I'm not okay with you getting away with breaking the rules. That's where the success comes in. That's why you didn't hear anything about players going off and doing crazy things under Belichick and the Patriots' successful era. And so the question has to be, do you want to win Super Bowls or do you want to be famous? Because I feel like a lot of these players nowadays entering the league, they just want to make the money and they want to be famous. They don't care about the game. And I think some of these teams have to start fining and disciplining and suspending players from playing and benching them. And I'm telling you something right now. If I was if I was the GM of the Rams and you broke team policy, Puka's not playing. He's just not. And I don't care if the coach hates me for it. Right? Puka's not playing. He broke the rules. He's not playing. If we lose the game, which eventually the Rams lost anyway, didn't they? The Rams blew a big lead, didn't they? Right? So, yeah, the Rams lost to the Seahawks last night. So, I don't care about the drama. I don't care about his streams and all that. But where my opinion lies is if he broke team rules, why are we letting him play? There's just a lack of accountability with a lot of these younger athletes in these pro leagues who a lot of them don't care about the sport itself, which is why a lot of them do two things. They, I don't know the amount of seasons needed to play. Let me research this real quick. I think it's 5. To get pension. 3. Okay, so 3. So you only need to play 3 seasons in the NFL to get a completely guaranteed pension. So to get an NFL pension, players genuinely need 3 credited seasons, meaning being on a team's roster for at least 3 regular or postseason games for 3 seasons. So essentially, you only have to be on a roster for 3 games in 3 consecutive seasons, or in 3 seasons total, right? Which vests them in the system for benefits like pension and health insurance. The actual monthly pension amount increases with more credited seasons, capping at 10 years of service for benefit calculation. Right? So that's why a lot of these younger players, this is going to be the epidemic we're going to get in the league, right? Because especially in the NIL generation, where a lot of them made their money in college. They're going to come in, they're going to play pro, they're going to play their rookie contract 4 years, 5 years for first rounders, right? They're going to play 4 to 5 years, get the big contract, right? Once they get the big contract after 4 to 5 years, they'll play like 2 or 3 seasons, 4 seasons, right? So they'll play about 8, 9 years in the league, retire. So with pension, and I think a lot of them could even, because they're getting their money in college, but if they're smart, they'd save it, play their rookie contract. I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm someone like that's not a guaranteed superstar, but if I'm someone that gets drafted in like the 5th round and I'm good enough to make the roster and play games, but I'm not like a superstar and I'm not going to ever, especially if I'm on a team like Cleveland or something that's never going to win a chip, I'm gonna play the rookie contract. I'm gonna get my money, especially if I got NIL money from college. I'll save that, make the league, play 3, 4, 5, play the rookie contract, get the big payday on like a 2-year contract after that, to where I play 6 seasons and then I'm retiring. There's no right? And so, because at that point, you then have health insurance, you have pension, you're good to go. And so, I think that's what we're going to start seeing with some of these players who don't care about the game, right? There's a lot of players who don't care about the game. They just want to be famous and they want the money. And I think Puka is going to go down into one of those. I'm not going to talk about his love for the game because I don't know. But obviously he doesn't care enough about rules, because he's like, didn't he break the rules earlier this year by going live in the locker room after the game? Like, while players were changing in the locker room post game, which is supposed to be like a private, intimate setting where they can, change after the game. Like, a locker room is supposed to be a private setting. And Puka's live, and everyone's asking him to turn it off, and he doesn't. He didn't get disciplined then, from my understanding. So if he didn't discipline him then, now he's going to escalate to going on these shows and streams. Well, of course he is, because he's not going to get disciplined. You can knock this out real quick by disciplining players. Oh, Puka, you think it's tough living on $480,000? Well, we're going to fine you $100,000. Puka will stop it, wouldn't he? Like, I don't know, man. That's where I'm at with that. We got a lot of entitled players who just want to be famous. It's one of the dangers of influencer culture is even our athletes want to be influencers now, right? Which is why it's so wholesome to see something like what's going on with Drake and his wife in New England. I don't know if you saw this, but like, I see videos all the time from like the Ravens and the Vikings that the Wags wife and girlfriends come off the buses and they're dressed to the nines and they all got like plastic surgery and BBLs and all that, and they're shaking ass and shit coming off the buses at the games. And then I see Drake May's wife, wholesome as could be, hosting a Christmas party with all the wives and girlfriends, and they're doing a cookie send-off, and all of them look normal. Like, it's a breath of fresh air to see that. But that's why the Patriots are so successful. Because we're quiet, bro. It's all about football there. Like, Vrabel's not trying to be a superstar. Drake May's not trying to be famous. He's not trying to be the superstar. Oh, man, you're the MVP. Nah, bro, we're just worried about next game. That's how you win Super Bowls. Right? That's how you win Super Bowls. That's how you win success, right? And so some players want all the distraction, right? Which is why I was kind of worried when Stephon got signed by Diggsy got signed by the Patriots, because he's a drama queen, right? That was right. And even like in the offseason with him and Cardi B and all of that drama, and him and the pink cocaine on the boat, right? And all of that, and hopefully we put an end to all of that drama, right? Speaking of which, this connects because Travis Scott done fucked up a lot of things for me this year. He was at the game for the Patriots last week. That's why we lost, bro. Keep him out. He's my op, bro. He ruined Cena's seal. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, no, I'm kidding. But yeah, we'll end the episode there. I could go on for days about some of these NFL players, but you could tell who loves the game and who doesn't. And I'll just end it there. With that being said, thank you all for listening to the final episode of the year. Next year's aiming to be a really good one as well. We will come back on I'll probably record January. We'll come back in January. I'm aiming to record Monday the 5th. But if not then, we'll definitely be back the week after, which would be the 12th. I'm aiming for the 5th, but if not, then the 12th we'll be back to have new episodes out. So I'll record on Mondays now, and they'll be live Tuesday morning. Right? That's how the year is going to go. I'm going to record Monday night. They'll go live Tuesday morning on the sites. And then yeah, and that's how that'll go. And so technically the episode's released Tuesday. Right? So with that being said, just point of order, going into the new to season 5, questions must be in the Discord by 7 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, because I'm recording Monday nights, right? Just for point of order going forward. Keep the questions coming over the break. We're going to start the season 5 episode essentially by breaking down anything that I missed. Playoffs. Probably predict the playoffs, because week 18 is the 4th, I believe. And the January 4th, I think, is the last Sunday of the regular season. I believe. Yeah. Excuse me, the 7th is. January 7th is the last of the... Hold on. I don't know why I said that. The 4th. The 4th is the last Sunday of... Yeah, so we're definitely going to aim for the 5th. So what we'll do is we'll predict the playoffs. I don't think there's going to be any major wrestling news because the 5th, the 6th, and whatever that Friday is, that'll be the 9th. That's like the big season debut of WWE, so they all probably got big events for that, right? New Year's Evil's on the 6th, all of that, right? And so we'll predict the playoffs. If there's anything big that happens in wrestling between now and the 5th, we'll talk about it. But we'll predict the NFL playoffs. We'll talk about the college football playoffs. We will then do a as large as you guys make it, question. So if you have a question, submit it. I will write it down. We'll talk about it. We'll just catch up, essentially, on the trends there, or the news and whatever's going on. But definitely predicting the NFL playoffs. Anyway, I feel like I've talked a lot. Until the next episode, y'all have a great Christmas holiday. If you don't celebrate Christmas, I know Hanukkah just started. If you celebrate Hanukkah, have a good holiday there. But yeah, have a good Christmas break, and I will see you again in the new year. I'm WETOODEEP. We'll see you then.
So hit that subscribe, come along for the ride, whether it's NXT or NFL time. Going in the ropes and fourth and deep, slapping meat community every Tuesday. Open immunity, yeah, have immunity, yeah, every Tuesday.